I'd like you to welcome our next speaker, Daniel Zeichner, MP for Cambridge.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, friends. Thank you, everybody. You know, we really should stop meeting like this. It's so good to see so many people, particularly who were there in London at the weekend. And can I personally thank all of you, the 28,000 people who have signed a petition so far. It's an extraordinary thing. And on Saturday, it was such a great celebratory occasion, wasn't it? And, you know, there wasn't any need for police. You know, some people are saying it wasn't 1 million. Well, it looked like a lot of people to me from where I was standing. And, well, it could have been 2 million, who knows? But it was a lot. It was a lot. I have to say, in London today, it was a different mood. I have an office that looks out over Whitehall, and what I saw in Whitehall this afternoon was not such a pretty sight. It wasn't large numbers of people, but it was people who were angry and bitter, and I'm afraid it didn't feel very good. So while this is a celebratory rally, my message to you is the country's not in a good position at the moment, and we can talk about how we got here, we can cast blame. I have to say, I think the Prime Minister's red lines have made this a much more difficult process than it needed to be. But Heidi's absolutely right. Parliament this week has started what should have been done a long time ago. I spoke in the debate on Wednesday, and I did make the point, it's March the 27th. We've known for years that March the 29th was coming. Why are we only having this discussion today? So you hardly expect, you can hardly expect a new position to be found in a couple of days when the government's had years to get this far. But we are trying, and people are trying really hard. But I also cautioned, and I do say this to people, that this is an emotional, passionate issue. And as we heard with Paul's indicative ballots earlier, I'm not convinced that many Leavers think that Norway or Common Market 2 is leave, any more than many of us think that kind of position is anywhere near as good as the best deal we could ever have, which is the deal we've got, which is staying in the European Union. So while I'm a natural consensus seeker, and I will do everything I can to help colleagues in Parliament next week move to a consensus position, I didn't vote for the customs union the other day, because actually I think in the end I know what I want, and I'm afraid I slipped into Maybot. I said remain means remain. Because it does, doesn't it? Because when you kindly come to it, all those options, when you look at them, you're always left with that stark, obvious point. Why on earth would you want to be in something where others are setting the rules and you have no say? How is that taking back control? It's giving up control. What this is about is sharing with our neighbours, which is what we're going to have to do anyway. So when people say, I'm fed up with it, let's finish it, I'm so tired of it, do they not understand we haven't even got to the end of the beginning? This will go on for years, because the place you make the compromises, the trade-offs, is actually within the European Union. That's what it does. And if you're not in the European Union, you'll be doing it outside the European Union with loads and loads of different countries. This won't be finished. This will be going on, dividing us for years and years and years. For those who want it over, the answer is simple. Revoke Article 50. But friends, and I will be brief, I'll try. When we say that, we must also recognise there are many people across the country who are feeling bitter and angry tonight and disappointed. So we have to be careful in our tone and measured, because we are winning the argument, because the argument, quite frankly, is there to be won. But we must also understand this is a very emotional issue. And we have got to also address the grievances that were underlying that vote, because it was about, quite frankly, much more than the European Union. But in the meantime, we've got to find a way through this over the next few weeks. So Parliament will be doing it all again next week. I fear, all again the following week. It is distracting from many of the very urgent things that we need to be attending to, but this is a huge issue for our country. And the conclusion I've come to is that when you have two such different positions, in the end, there is only one way to resolve that. We shouldn't be scared of democracy. It's a cathartic process. If it's done in a reasoned and sensible way, then that can be the way we can come to a measured conclusion. which is what I conclude there has to be ultimately a vote. And that is the way I think it will go, and that is the way I think that Cambridge will stay. Thank you very much.